Welcome everybody, thank you for joining us on this Friday's live stream. We are the Terrible Two. I'm Debbie and my colleague Laura, who's behind the camera. We are hoping to entertain you today with another demonstration. We are going to use this rather beautiful vintagey urn. I think these ones are actually called, are they Grecian urns? Grecian, yeah. So they have like almost a stone effect to them. They're not really stone, they're more of a they're more like a concrete really, but really heavy and solid. Work perfectly for a vintage themed wedding, or even actually a garden style wedding. It would work really well. So we're going to use these absolutely amazing delphiniums. Now I did make a bit of a faux pas a couple of weeks ago and actually called some delphiniums hydrangeas. So I'm going to try and get my varieties correct today. So these delphiniums are, this one's called White Centurion. Now these are, as you can see, quite substantial. So you've got 120 centimetre stem length on these, but they are absolutely amazing. They do hold their price, but as the old saying goes, you get what you pay for. They are worth the money because the lower blooms that I've just stripped off, can you see how absolutely beautiful these lower blooms are? And they're so huge. I mean, you could actually use those in arrangements. You could make buttonholes with them. You could make corsages with them. So yeah, such a usable flower. So that's our Centurion White delphinium. Then we have everybody's favourite at the moment, the hydrangea. Now this one is Schneeball, so there are two flower varieties we're using. Haven't got any foliage at all that I'm going to use in the actual arrangement.
So just to let everyone know that all the varieties that Deb has mentioned will be posted on the post above after the video. And also we'll put what she's using in her florist box, and also those gorgeous urns we do have available on our website, so I'll also put a link over to that as well. So just to do a few shout outs like we do every week, we've got Michelle, Jill, Melanie, Carol, Pam, Rachel and Lynn all watching.
Hello ladies and welcome. It's nice to hear the shout outs because then we don't feel we're alone. We like to know that people are watching us. And do please ask questions. Post the questions below and whilst we're progressing through the demonstration, Laura and I will try and answer them as best we can for you. So yeah, we like interaction, don't we, Laura?
Absolutely.
So yeah, and as I say, it makes us feel like we're not alone. So I've put a piece of Oasis. This is actually a full house brick size, so your usual brick size Oasis. It's been soaked. I've actually sliced the ends to actually fit into the urn, so it's basically just cut to size. And I'm just going to secure that with some 12mm anchor tape. Now what I'm going to do, usually I would recommend that you strap that across the centre. Because I've got such massive stems here, I'm actually going to put the tape to one side, if I tip that so you can see, which then leaves me a little bit more central area of Oasis for me to actually pop the stems into. And then just to extra secure that Oasis, I'm just going to put a piece of cross tape there, just to stop it from pinging out.
So with that, Debbie, are you going to, because obviously we're using our hydrangeas, would the hydrangeas hide the mechanics of that? Because obviously that's not the prettiest looking mechanical.
What are you saying, Laura?
Well,
no.
being honest.
You could, to be fair, you could use clear pot tape, the Oasis clear pot tape, which wouldn't be quite such an eyesore. But if you can imagine, when I pop those hydrangeas in, you actually won't see it. So yeah, it is important to hide your mechanics every time. It's also really important you hide your mechanics, but it's so important that the mechanics are there, because basically the arrangement falls apart if you don't have some support for it. So, right, so starting off with my delphinium. Now they are hollow stem, so you're normally told to cut stems at an angle so you create a sharp point. These are quite a firm stem, so it does actually work with these. But if this was a softer stem, by cutting at an angle, this point would become very soft and you wouldn't get it into the oasis. So you would need to cut horizontally, so you've got more of a surface area to push into the oasis. On this occasion, because the stems are so solid, as you can see, they will go into the oasis quite happily. I'll start with that one centrally.
So I do have a question, Deb. Rachel, she's asked about the lower buds that we've removed from the delphiniums, saying that because normally, you know, like hydrangeas or delphiniums, they're slightly softer in, say, a buttonhole. Is there any tips on how you can stop them wilting if you're using in a buttonhole?
Yeah, okay, so firstly, I wouldn't make them up until the day of the event and as close to the delivery time as possible. The other thing you can do is get some cotton wool. So cut the stem to the length that you want it, get some cotton wool, soak the cotton wool, bind it very finely around, and then tape it with the parafilm on top, so it actually does give you a little source of moisture. To be honest with you, something like this is so delicate. Hugs and kisses in a receiving line are going to crush it really quickly, so it's not the most practical flower to use, but they do look so beautiful. Such a shame to waste them. But they could certainly sit in jam jars, so yeah, don't waste it.
Absolutely.
Just turning, I don't know if you can see that. Is that a good position? Yeah, perfect. Wow, look at that one.
Oh, it's stunning.
Isn't that amazing? We're so lucky in the job that we do. So lucky.
So I know you've probably mentioned this, Debs, but you've used one whole block there.
I have.
Is that better than using split blocks? So like two or three, just...
Yeah, if you are doing split blocks, always make sure that there's no split where your stems are going. So for example, if you cut a block in half, don't put the two long pieces upright vertical, where you could put stems in the middle, because if you've got weight, it's going to separate them, and if you've got a split there already, it's going to make it easier for them to fall apart. So always put a horizontal block and a horizontal block, so you still get the height, but you've got no split.
Perfect. I know we've mentioned that before about pedestals, so I thought it'd be brilliant to bring that up.
Especially when you've got heavy, big stems like we're using today.
Absolutely. So we've got Carol, who's asked, how far in advance could you make up this arrangement?
To be fair, I'd probably only do it the day before, simply because then you've got the whole shelf life to look forward to.
Absolutely. And maybe with the hydrangeas, would you say that they're not...
They don't love oasis, to be honest. They will survive in oasis, but they're not entirely happy, not for long periods of time.
And would it also vary on where you're storing them?
Yeah, it would. If they're going into a warm domestic environment, then it's imperative that you do spray them. Because hydrangeas, as the name suggests, hydra, they love water, and they do drink from the heads as well as the stems. So yeah, do give them a spray as well when you leave the arrangement. Sorry, I haven't quite placed that where I wanted it to. There we go. So there's our 5 hydrangeas in there. No, 5 delphiniums. I have a mental block with hydrangeas and delphiniums.
Debbie, what are you like?
I need to go back to school and learn my flower names.
Yes.
Seriously. Okay.
We've got a question from Michelle before you move on to the hydrangea. Would there be a need for floral netting over the oasis? She's just thinking about the transport.
Yeah, that would be, that would, absolutely, yeah, or even chicken wire, anything that's going to give it more stability. I I tend to transport things like this in really deep square buckets, so actually they transport quite easily like that. But if you don't have something like that that's quite substantial, then yeah, anything you can do to make transportation easier is good. Good. Now is a good opportunity to water it if you want to, because you've got clear access to the container. Okay. Just taking the leaves off. Now, as I said about the hydrangeas, they're not entirely happy in Oasis. So what I'm going to do is slit the stem up. What that in effect does is creates greater surface area of cells exposed to the water, which in this case is Oasis, so they drink that little bit more readily. All right, anything you can do like that to just help the flower to drink more easily, more readily, has got to be worth it.
Would you suggest to, when you're conditioning, to submerge the whole flower?
Absolutely.
In water?
I would. So when they arrive, they'll probably arrive flat packed and dry in boxes. So they will be slightly dehydrated when you receive them. And it can be quite alarming because they will can look quite shriveled sometimes. But just cut the stem, as I said before, cut the stem at an angle, and if you are concerned, slit it up as well, doesn't harm. Then plunge that whole thing into a bath of water, or anything really where they're completely submerged. You can leave them like that for about 6 hours, and then take them out, pop them back into a vase, let them drip dry, and they should be fine the next morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so they are quite resilient, despite the fact that they can be sensitive. They are resilient. So don't be alarmed to use them. So I'm just placing these in.
So instead of going across in the Oasis, are you pointing those stems downwards to get them right into the Oasis?
I am. As much Oasis as we can get into them, and because also the water source is lower, so if the stems are further down into the water source, then that way hopefully they should drink quite readily. I am removing the leaves and the foliage. Again, don't throw those away. You can cut those, pop them into a little bucket of water or something, and you can use those for other work later on. They do work quite well as a sculptural leaf actually, quite a nice shape and size. So forcing that down into that. And I'll just spin that round a bit more. So yeah, I have to say, I didn't actually select the flowers this week. Normally I do. Laura selected them this week, and oh my word, what a beautiful selection. All white is always my favourite anyway.
Absolutely.
So you couldn't have actually picked anything better. So I have to say, we are so spoilt here, aren't we?
We are indeed.
The pick of the crop, literally. Oh, got a little baby one there. Okay, so just cutting the last hydrangea.
So just to let everyone know, I would assume that the majority watching are following us on Facebook. So every month this year we've been doing a flower of the month. So May was the peony, June will be the garden roses, and just to let you know that in July we are focusing on hydrangeas. So it'd be worth to refer to our Facebook, blog, YouTube, everywhere thing that we're on as such. Just if you want to see some arrangements that we're doing, conditioning advice, lots of information on them in July. So if you are interested, make sure you stay tuned. Someone said well done, Laura. Thanks, Caroline.
So I'm just adding in some of the leaves now, some of the slightly more beautiful leaves, just to give that little colour at the base.
So you are cherry picking, aren't you, there?
I am very much cherry picking, as I am known to do. Picking the nicest leaves here just to go in the arrangement. And then it's
So if you wanted to keep it a bit more white, would you just not use the leaves, would you say?
Yeah.
Just to make it a bit more kind of...
I've only used them really to give it sort of a colour really, as a...
Well, it does work nicely.
Different, there you go. And I've got one little tiny gap there, which I'm going to pop that little one in. And there you have it. There you have it.
So Sophia, the hydrangea stem at the moment, this Schneebel, it is one of the highest production white varieties. It will completely depend on the stem length that you opt for, but they can go from about £2 to about £4 a stem. So they're coming into season, so they're a better value for money, but it will completely depend on the variety that you've chosen. As I say, this variety is Schneebel. It's one of the highest production varieties, so they can offer it at a slightly lower price at the auctions. We do also sell, say, Colombian ivory, which tends to be a set price majority of the year, which is £2.44 a stem. But there's lots of other ones, isn't there?
I'd say Schneebel is probably one of the whitest.
Yeah.
So if it's pure white you're going for, then Schneebel is probably as close as you're going to get to that.
Yeah.
Whereas the Colombian are definitely more ivory in their colour tone. Yeah. So depending on the palette that you're using, I mean, the white, the Schneebel work beautifully with the delphinium today because they are all white and green. But yeah, if you were using different colours, then ivory might work better.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they are.
You've got a few other like Dutch, don't you? You've got like Noordpool and there's so many different ones now.
You've got sort of Lima Peru as well, which is very much a green white. That's that's almost like one stage on from the Colombian.
Yeah.
If you've got the white, then you've got the ivory, and then the Lima Peru is a little bit greener. And then you start going in towards the green.
Yeah. And then you've
so
got the classics,
you've got that monochromatic sort of.
To be fair, sometimes it can work quite nicely when you've got the classic colour tone in, say, this style of arrangements, because you're getting the nice two-tone effect. But yeah, it completely depends on your colour scheme, wouldn't it? So.
Absolutely. So I'm speeding ahead here now.
What are you doing now?
I'm actually going to create a little garland to go around the base of our arrangement out of this scrumptious olive. So I've just cut the olive into small pieces, and then I'm just going to add that into the original stem and then just tie it. I'm going to tie each piece individually as opposed to doing a running a binding method. You can do a binding method. I prefer to do this if it's going to be viewed because it's not so obvious. If you do a binding method, you see the string or the wire all the way through if you're not careful, because this theoretically is going to sit on a table. I don't really want it to show so much, so hence why I'm doing a tying method.
And also, would you, because you tend to use the twine, would you use wire or?
I only use twine because it's biodegradable. So basically, at the end of the day, when somebody wants to throw everything away, when it's finished with, it can literally be put into a composter because the twine is biodegradable. If you're using wire, you then can't. You can't throw the wire away. So yeah, we do try and be as eco-friendly as we can here, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you can see I've done 2 tying points there so far. And then as you go along, you can actually remove some of the slightly more woody stalks so it doesn't look quite so ugly. And then keep adding as you go along. Now, I will just mention that the olive is actually quite new at the moment, so you can see there's a little bit of new growth there. What you might find if it's out of water is that you need to just nip those little end pieces off because they will kink over, as it were. Okay. Now the flowers, the little buds that you can see, will actually open. I have noticed them opening on some of the olive that we've had in recently. So yeah, and they do have a little bit of a fragrance, but it's quite a rarity to actually see it in flower, so don't get too excited because chances are it won't be in flower in the next couple of weeks. So you can see how we're progressing. I'm just going to cut that little piece off as it's a little bit wild there, and then add some more bits in as we go along.
So keep those questions coming. I know we've got everyone's concentrating, I would presume.
Oh, are they? They've gone very quiet.
They have indeed.
So we normally ask people what their weather's like. We haven't done that lately, have we?
We haven't. It's very warm outside.
It's somebody.
Very nice.
Some customer told me earlier on this morning it's supposed to be 30 degrees this weekend.
Oh, lovely.
Where did
What,
that
on
come?
your working days?
Yeah, okay.
Don't get your hopes up. We're working.
Right, exactly.
We have got weddings though, so that would be nice.
Yeah, it'd be nice for
the
our
bride and
brides.
groom.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So you can see how I'm gradually building this up into a garland.
I can imagine the olive would look quite nice in a floral crown, or maybe.
Yep, I have done it in floral crown. Works really well with. We did olive and we did some bombastic spray roses and some wax flower in one a little while ago, which really nice.
Really
And
nice.
believe it or not, we also had a couple of little mini echiveras in there, which was quite funky.
Ooh, lots of raining for our watchers.
Oh
We've got raining in
no!
Birmingham, warm in North Yorkshire, so that's okay. Lovely Laura, it's raining in Fife in Scotland, and it's cloudy in Buckinghamshire.
Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said. Weather's very controversial. I shouldn't have mentioned that.
Oh dear.
Perhaps my customer is just winding me up.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's raining.
So let us know also what you're doing flower-wise, what your plans are, what you're creating. We love to hear what you're making, and thank you very much for all the pictures that you've been sending in of designs that you've created, inspired by us, which is really lovely. Thank you. So keep those coming. We love to see what you guys produce, and keep those questions coming as well. Right, so you can see how rather than doing a straight garland, I'm actually trying to create a slightly more circular looking one. Surprising how much olive you use, to be fair.
We've got a question, Debs, from Caroline. She said, how long would the olive last out of water? As I've got a church arch to do, and using Oasis is not going to be that easy.
Okay.
She says it's sunny.
I'm glad to hear it's sunny. I'm feeling really bad now that I mentioned the weather and everybody's saying it's raining. Okay, so it won't last indefinitely out of water. Well, it won't last for a long period like soft ruscus would. What I would suggest ideally is make it up the day before if you can. If you want to do a bit of preparation and garland work earlier on, if you do make it up, then line a box with some cellophane, spray the cellophane with water, lay the garland in, and then
It's almost in a microclimate, isn't it?
absolutely, and then more cellophane over the top so it keeps it nice and moist and content. One of my colleagues actually lays her garlands in a bath of water overnight, so that's fine as long as you don't have a husband that wants to have a bath. They do draw the line at sharing a bath with flowers and foliage.
With a garland.
Exactly. But yeah, that's
a garland, to be fair.
that's another option. If you have a spare bath, you can actually lay it in the bath so it's still drinking until the very last moment.
We've got Carol who wants to know, I want to do a simple garland, what would you recommend to use?
I'd say that's quite simple.
Yeah.
Or the easiest one is your soft ruscus, because you can just literally bind the soft stem into the hard stem and just tie it, and away you go. Also, you can buy it in 130 centimetre stem lengths. get between 3 and 5 stems per bunch. It's for £5.10 plus VAT. So 130 centimetres, you can quickly get a decent length of that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that would be my favoured option.
And what I will do, Carol, is because we have done a demonstration on how to create a simple garland before, so I will at the end actually. I'll just send that over to you in this comment, just so you can watch lovely Debbie again.
Well, our garlands were really popular, weren't they?
Yeah, top video, Debs.
I know. We did some nice ones at Christmas as well, where we put little candles in between, and
we've done pumpkins before.
We did pumpkins,
yeah.
and we do oranges? Did we do satsumas and stuff in? I can't remember now. Yeah. So it's going to become a point where we run out of new ideas. You realise?
Our customers are going to have to inspire us, or our followers are going to have to inspire us soon.
We do get asked quite often to concentrate on a particular style or a particular type of arrangement, which we're quite happy to do. So yeah, keep those suggestions coming.
We've got Laura who says, obviously the lovely Laura, I've made 2 big birthday bouquets for her dad's birthday celebrations.
Oh.
She mentioned that last week, didn't she? About, is it the 60th birthday, Laura? I think I remember.
I do remember that, actually.
So she put some sunny sunflowers in there, and she doesn't think there'll be any real sun.
I really shouldn't have said anything about the weather.
I'll cross my fingers for you, Laura.
Yeah, definitely. So there we have our little table garland, which I'm just literally going to place around the base of the arrangement. And then just tie it together.
Perfect.
And there you have it. So we have our olive garland and our arrangement of delphinium and hydrangea. These being the delphinium, these being the hydrangea.
If just a question, Debbie, if you wanted to, obviously that's quite a tall centrepiece, and some people want to see the person opposite them, obviously.
Well,
so if you wanted to make it slightly shorter, would you just not include the delphinium?
If you still want to keep some height and structure, you could always use something possibly like larkspur, which is a little bit thinner so you could see through it. Or rather than a flower content, do something like tortured willow, Salix pussy willow, or Salix contorta, or even some of the dried birch. Because the dried birch, which is dyed also, comes in all sorts of colours and sparkles. They do an absolutely beautiful rose gold one that we had at Christmas time with a little bit of glitter on it, excuse me, which would work really well for wedding work with a kind of rose gold theme, following on from our rose gold we did a couple of weeks ago. So if you had that in the centre of the arrangement, you could still see through that a little bit more, so it wouldn't be blocked quite so much. But yeah, with this style of arrangement, you kind of got to go high enough to see under, or low enough to see over, really. To
be fair, even without the delphiniums, with just the hydrangea, I think it would look lovely with the olive, just to balance it out.
The nice thing about having something at table height is, if you have a tall structural arrangement, very often the concentration is up high. So you get, when you walk into the reception room, you get that wow factor because you see all these huge, beautiful, impressive arrangements. When you're seated at the table and you're talking amongst yourselves, you don't see any of the beauty of it because it's up high. So by having something low down that people can kind of focus on, kind of brings everything back down together, really, and almost encourages conversation, a bit more intimacy.
Absolutely. Well, I think we'll finish there, Debs.
Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed our live stream today. Don't forget to check out our new flower of the month for June, which are garden roses. So we've got a really exciting June month coming up. Look out for new content on our website. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page, and obviously you can go onto our YouTube channel for more tips and hints and lots of more inspirational videos. So thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic weekend despite the weather, Don't forget to like us and don't forget to share us with your friends. And we will see you next Friday. Bye for now.